Okay, you should be on now.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:05 on January 27th. Quick statement, due to the current federal and state emergency declarations and guidance for social distancing, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the Montevideo School Board will be conducted in accordance with the Minnesota State Statute 13D-021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Take a quick roll call. Travis?
Here.
Joe?
Unmute, Joe.
Here.
Becky? Thank you.
Here.
Tyler?
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
All right, and Andrew's here. We've also got Lee Warren here. Helping us out tonight. The explanation of the call is to review the stakeholder input, review the superintendent's search timeline and process, review and discuss the protocol and process for superintendent interviews, develop the first round questions, interview schedule and interview procedures, and then discuss, decide, and schedule steps necessary for the rest of the hiring process. So I'm gonna, at this point, I'm gonna look for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve this agenda.
Tyler moved, and Travis seconded. Thank you both. Do a quick roll call vote. Travis?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Becky?
Aye.
Thank you. Tyler?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
And Andrews and I, motion carries. I'm gonna turn it over to Lee to walk us through. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you very much. As we get going, if people have questions, unmute and speak up, or turn your camera on. Most of you I can't see. Let me know that you have a question and I'll stop. So anytime you have any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. Just a review of what we're going to do tonight. I think Andrew went through it pretty well. We're going to talk a little bit about the stakeholders report. I think everybody got sent a copy of that. Secondly, there's a big long document. Most of you have already gone through some of this in November. I think it was the third week in November that you went through the workshop of hiring a new superintendent. A couple of you, I don't know if you have or not, so we'll review a little bit some of that. But because you've gone through the workshop, it'll allow us to condense things a little bit tonight. We will talk about the timeline. We'll talk a little bit about the first round of questions, and we'll actually get to the point, I think, tonight, Andrew, of selecting the first round questions. And then secondly, you should have received a draft document on the first round of interviews. And we'll talk a little bit about that and get that established. Next Wednesday is the deadline for applications, Wednesday at midnight. And so this will begin to happen fairly quickly. Now, it's been quiet from your end for a while, and now things will really pick up. So let's start with that stakeholders survey. Essentially, we put out an electronic survey, and the staff and folks in your district were really good about getting this out to a lot of people. 180 folks responded. That's a good response, and I think you should feel good about it. It was open for 3 weeks, which is a long time, but when you look at who responded, two groups made up almost 80% of the respondents. 40% were parents and 39% were staff members. In addition, 14% are other community members. So the bulk of the people that responded have a vested interest of one kind or another. In some ways, I think that provides some really good insight to you, as well as the other respondents can give you a more outside view as well. So I think it really captured what it is that the community is thinking, and it's probably a really good document for you to lean on. The first area.
This level of respondents from our parents and staff, is that fairly standard, and then not to get much from the other stakeholders?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems like in general, a lot of the responses that we see are people that are connected. Sometimes it's actually a little higher by staff members. You actually have a pretty good response for parents. Again, these are guidelines because somebody could fill both roles. They could be a staff member and a parent, and maybe only check the parent box or only check the staff member box. And some of those same people could be business owners, but only check the parent box. So this is only a guideline, but it's normal. This falls right in the ballpark.
Thank you.
Yep, it's the areas of expertise. The 7 desirable areas of expertise, and these are in order of preference. Respondents wanted collaborative leadership, somebody who had expertise in budget and finance, public relations, school reform, curriculum development, personnel management, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you look at this, I saw some themes that jumped out at me as we go through it, and I'm guessing that you already saw some of these as well. The next area is the specialized skills. So these are the top 7 specialized skills. The first is acts with honesty and ethical manner. The second is a people person. The third is visible in the school district and the community. And when you compare that to the characteristics that you listed on your vacancy brochure, they match identically. That's what you selected as a board as being important. This is what the community has also selected as saying that's important. And that's really good. That's a strong validation that you're representative of what the community is looking for. In addition, they put in that they trust and work with various groups within the community is important. Working with an effective leadership team and deals with different perspectives and teamworks. If you go to the second page, then the question, have experience or not? This was almost split. 54%, it's not necessary, and 46% said, that, probably we should have somebody with experience as a superintendent. So that's indicative of the fact that people don't have a strong preference one way or the other. Personal characteristics, there were 6. We asked people to list the top 6 personal characteristics, and these are in order of preference. And these also matched up to a lot of what has been seen before, and also what you listed as your characteristics: honest and ethical, effective communicative, problem solver, transparent, personable, consistent. Those are the things that the community felt. In addition, then, the survey takers were given an option to provide more answers to 5 questions. The 5 questions are: what are some good things taking place in the Monteviejo schools today? What challenges do you see for the district over the next 5 years? What qualities or characteristics should an individual have if they're going to be a successful superintendent here? What does a new superintendent need to know about the history and politics of the district? And finally, an opportunity, if you're going to say something, to the incoming superintendent, whoever she or he might be, what would it be? So these were there's a lot of responses. You're only seeing a smattering of the responses, and many of these are characteristic of other like comments. And so in each box, we have summarized the intent of all of those comments. So the first question: what are some good things taking place in Monteviejo schools today? 40 people responded in this category, basically saying that Monteviejo has a capable, collaborative staff that goes above and beyond for each student in the district. And if you look at all those responses, they're just really positive endorsements of the quality staff, hardworking, the dedicated, et cetera. It's really a positive feedback for you about the district. The next basic category from that first question, the good things taking place today, is that Montevideo has a strong commitment to provide current and quality technology to each student. And so you can see from the comments underneath, people are saying that doing a good job with the one-on-one, the student and staff access to technology is excellent. We've got good infrastructure, et cetera. The third grouping, which had 14 respondents, and these are now in decreasing quantities in terms of respondents. Montevideo has continued to provide quality education services, student support, stakeholder communication technology, and then underlined during the pandemic. The responses to what's happening in the pandemic were categorically different. However, they still reflect what it is that you saw in that first box. And so there was some really good things about what's happened during this past year. And fourth, Montevideo does everything it can to meet the needs of all of its students through a comprehensive and adaptive curriculum. You had 12 respondents there, and you know, they talk about strong and diverse opportunities and students leaving with strong foundations and basic skills, and the great things that are happening for special needs children as well. So those are really positive feedback, I think, on all the things that are happening in Montevideo. I think that as a board, that's I would feel really good as a board member getting that. The second question then, what's the challenges then? These are the great things that are going on. What are the challenges that you see over the next 5 years? And they came into various themes, and the first one was there was some concern about upgrading facilities. Montevideo community is concerned about school district physical infrastructure and passing a referendum for buildings, bond referendum. And you can see a number of comments there that reflect, there were 37 different comments that came in that area. The second group is the Montevideo community is concerned about the financial status of the school district, especially considering fluctuations in enrollment and anticipated reductions in funding. And as I look through all these, the question really revolved around financial stability. And, you know, I think that's, you know, maybe not atypical to most districts now, particularly with the kind of fluctuations in enrollment based upon COVID. I did note that the governor did propose an increase in funding this week too. So who knows if that'll be passed or where it'll go, but financial concerns are certainly strong. And the third one is that there was some concern about the learning disparities that are a result of COVID. That in fact that the way we're doing learning now is creating a wider gap. Some people thrive in this environment, and some students just really don't. And so there was concern about what do we do to recover from this spread. So there were three good things for you to sink your teeth in. The third question was, what are the characteristics or qualities of the next superintendent should have in order to be successful? And one of the themes that seemed to pop out, this first one had 51 responses to, they want somebody that's a good communicator and somebody that's a collaborator, somebody that can work with lots of different groups and bring people together. That was a strong theme. Secondly, they want the next superintendent to be a strong leader with integrity. These are terms that came up repeatedly: integrity, curiosity, vision, ethical, innovative, honest, and motivating. And some of those things are the things that you listed in your qualification in the brochure, your vacancy brochure. It also showed up in the first question about, the first responses about superintendent and what they're looking for. And next, the Montevideo community wants the next superintendent to be both visible and involved in the school and community. In the words, involved in the community show up multiple times visiting with staff and students multiple times, be a public figure, shows up repeatedly in one form or another, and the result of that, of course, is building strong relationships across the community. And I think, as we all know, that's certainly a strong basis for helping develop the base for any future referendums. So some of this is tied, if you will, thematically to the financial stability, because referendums are part of that, to facilities, because building referendums are tied to that, and just overall relationship between the district and the community. Fourth, the question was, what does a new superintendent need to know about the history and politics of the school district? The theme of that, we're small, we're conservative, we're proud, and we want to be as good as we've always been. Seems to come up quite a bit, and there was really a lot of comments about that, and they were all pretty much the same. Is that there's a lot of pride in Montevideo, always has been, and particularly in the school district, and they don't want that to go away. They want that to continue. Secondly, had some difficulty passing a referendum because of the degraded relationship between the district and the community. There were a couple of themes that popped up in here that I noticed. First, the older population, and I would probably reinterpret that to say people that don't have kids in school, perhaps, wonder about the school buildings and the cost to them, and that's always a common theme. And the theme of the trust between board and administration and other stakeholders isn't as strong enough to pass a referendum we need. That popped up multiple times. So the referendum issue was a big one that came up. And the issue of trust, next page, issue of trust and communication is a recurring theme. And I don't know if it's realistic or not. You can only determine that. I just know that that's what people responded. And here they say the lack of transparency leads to mistrust. And that showed up in various ways of the comments. But they're looking for a good leader with great communication skills. That came up over and over again. So number 5, what would you say if you could say one thing to the next superintendent? This is always interesting to me because in one district, somebody responded, "Good luck." So it's fun and it's always positive. The community wishes everybody good luck, and comments about being visible. Be in the community so we can come talk to you, and to us to be able to share our thoughts with you, and likewise share your thoughts with us. So from a somebody that presents the stakeholders engagement part, there's a really lot of good endorsement and feedback for you here. Secondly, there's some good meat for you to sink your teeth into in terms of what the community's thinking about, what they're looking for. And finally, there's some really good things in here about what they feel the next superintendent ought to have. So, Andrew, anybody with questions about the stakeholder survey?
Yeah, fire them away if you guys have questions.
Okay. Don't be afraid to jump in. You can't hurt me by interrupting me, so just go ahead anytime. So let's move to the school board, the large packet, the training and interviewing process. It's my understanding that, I think it was the 19th of November, some of you went through the hiring the next superintendent workshop.
I think everybody attended this, Lee.
Everybody did.
Yeah, we looped in Tyler and Becky because they'd been elected by that point, so we made sure they were included.
Oh, awesome. Okay, then I'm gonna not spend quite as much time with this, and that'll shorten the meeting up too. And that's great. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. So if you go to the first page, the second and third page there, that's the vacancy brochure that I've been referring to. You've seen this before. This is what's out on our websites, on your website. People are referring to it. When I get comments about from a candidate to it, and on the second page, upper left, is a leadership profile. That's what it is, the characteristic that you said you're looking for. And as you look at that and think back on the stakeholders report, they pretty much align. And I think that's really positive for you, simply because I think you're very representative of the community. The next page is the timeline, which you've also seen, and I want to talk a little bit about that. We're at January 27th, about a third of the way down there, meeting for the training, discussion, interview, questions, and procedures. Thinking about the whole process and where this will be, the deadline is next Wednesday at midnight. Thursday will be staff, several of us from MSBA who will be digging into all of the applications that come in. We're doing that now, actually. We do them as they come in. And then that next day, the 4th, we'll be really digging into them. On the 5th, you'll receive an email from Barb Dorn. And that email will have a link that will allow you to go in and look at everybody's application. We use a software program called Revelous, and that allows you to see their letter of application, their resume, their references, their work history, their transcript, everything. I'm going to remind you repeatedly, all of that information is private. Just like you wouldn't want anybody looking into your detail stuff and talking about it, this is not available for you to share with anyone. And we'll talk about that in a little bit about when you can do that. It'll be available to you for a week, and you can look at it whenever you want, whatever's convenient for you. And then we will come back. I'll be with you again on the 16th of February. At that point in time, our team of people will come to you with a recommendation on who we think fits your criteria the best and who we think you ought to consider interviewing. Now, you'll be able to decide, I don't like anything they bring us, we'll throw them all out, we're going to take all of those. You can take all the ones we recommend and say, that's a good slate, we'll take those. Or you can mix and match however you want. It's your choice. Just know that we will have done a huge amount of background work on each candidate. We will, if we don't know them personally, and some of them we do, we will know somebody who knows them or somebody that they've worked for. And if not, then we will do extensive background work. I was doing workup for other candidates for another district today on candidates that were from out of state. And because I'd run a national association, I knew people that ran those organizations, the regional organizations, and could call them, et cetera. And so we spend a huge amount of time doing that kind of background for you. And as we bring a candidate to you, we'll never recommend somebody to you that we don't think meets your criteria. Likewise, you may say, well, you didn't recommend this person and they looked awfully good on paper. There's probably a really good reason why we don't, just so that you know when we get to that point. So then the 16th, you'll determine who you want to interview. The night of the 16th, as soon as we're done, we'll be talking to the candidates you select and scheduling them based upon the schedule we'll put together tonight for the 18th and 19th, Thursday and Friday. I think it's Thursday evening, Friday morning, if I remember right. And then I will, and during that same time, I will develop a second round of questions for you to look at, draft questions. And on the night of the 16th, when we pick candidates, we'll look at that second round of questions. And you'll get a chance to decide what you want to ask the second round. We can review that again on Friday the 19th when you're done and deciding who to bring back for the second round, in case you want to make some last second adjustments, and we could do that as well. So I'll be bringing you, like I have tonight, a recommended set of questions. I have no ownership to the questions. I simply tried to match up good quality questions to categories that I think would elicit the responses you were looking for.
Lee?
And yes.
Sorry, this is Joe. I just have a quick question.
Yep.
I don't think we're running this, but is there a minimum number of candidates you would like to see? And if we were to get, let's say, one or two, would you recommend to the district to reopen this up?
Good question, Joe. We would like to come in with 5 or 6. I mean, 6 would be ideal from our perspective, because that gives you a fairly broad spectrum to look at and to choose from. There have been times in this year already when we didn't have a 6th recommendation, and we went into a district with 5. And they talked about a long time, and they did select 5. It depends upon the candidate pool and how many there are. I will say this, the candidate pool isn't as deep as it has been in other years. And I don't know if that's because of COVID. I don't know if it's, I don't know. It's, you're fairly early in the process. There's a lot more districts that are opening up just in the next month. And so maybe we'll have a better reason for that, Joe, but I would say if you get to the point where you don't feel good with the pool, stop the process and reopen. Don't settle for something that you don't want. I've seen a district go all the way to the end and just agonize and decided not to hire anybody and reopen the process, hire an interim, reopen the process, and go through it again, and we'll help you with that. But that doesn't happen very often, and so far it's early. There are some applications coming in. I haven't looked at the details, I mean, who they are or anything. There are some in there, but the majority of the applications come the last week, which is now. And I don't know what it is that people wait for the last second and then decide to add their name, so. Does that help, Joe?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So then, second round questions is Monday, the 22nd. That starts at 4 o'clock. And when that's done, then we'll be making some decisions. As part of the interview process, we will, once we decide what the questions are, we will put them into an electronic format that each of you can have on your laptops. And we ask that each of you have a laptop. And each question, behind each question will be 3 columns. One column is titled E for exceeds expectations. One column is M for meets expectations. And one column is D, does not meet expectations. And so let's say you were interviewing me, you ask me the first question and I give my answer. And as you're listening to what I have to say, you go, man, that isn't what I expected at all. I don't think that's very good. And so you put a mark in D column, does not meet expectations. Or I might give an answer that you go, wow, yeah, that's somebody, yeah, that kind of falls right in line with what we want. So you'd mark E. When I get to the end, or when you get to the end of that interview, you hit submit. It goes to our office. Somebody in our office will be waiting, and they will grab all of the responses from you for a particular candidate, collate them, and turn around when we're done and send them all back to you. So when we sit down to talk about candidates, you're going to be able to see exactly how you as a group ranked various candidates by what their responses are. That has been a really good tool. We had to modify things electronically. We used to do it by paper, but it's really been a dandy thing. So hopefully we can talk a little bit more, but we'll need everybody to have a laptop of some kind or a computer if you're working from home. So then after the 22nd, then once you make a decision, then you decide how you're going to negotiate that contract. And if you're going to do it in, I think, if I remember right, I've got my notes here. Did you decide, Andrew, who was going to do negotiations for a contract? Have you talked about that yet?
They've all told me to do that.
You did, oh, that's right, yeah, I thought I heard a train whistle going when they did
Yeah,
that.
right. Me
Okay, yeah, what typically is done then, the board will give you very clear instructions as far as where you can stay in between, and then go get something put together, and then when you're done, your board gets back together again on, the 24th, a special board meeting. And that's where as a board, you'll get a chance to talk about it, et cetera. So that's kind of the timeline. Any questions on the timeline and how that'll work? Okay, let me blow through it. No questions. Let me blow through this training that you've had already before. I'm gonna hit the highlights and I'll show you where there's some homework just to refresh your memory. But I think this is really trouble. I don't wanna see that happen. And they're easily avoided. The first is in the protected categories. There are some things you just can't ask about. If you saw my last name was Anderson or Stenson, don't say, so are you of Norwegian heritage then? You can't do anything like that. Or if you see a wedding ring on my hand, you say, so do you have kids? Those aren't appropriate questions. They aren't related to the job. Be really careful about that. We've listed all of the protected categories here that you need to be very careful about. And then on the following pages, we literally take each protected category and give you an example of what's not okay to ask. And if you really got to ask it, what's permissible to ask. So for example, let's say that in your qualifications for superintendent, you listed able to speak Spanish. And the candidate came in and you could ask them, are you fluent in Spanish? If you haven't listed it, you can't ask that question because it's not a job requirement that you've listed. So if you go through the next several pages, here's your homework, review yourself with those protected categories. I don't think you're gonna get into any difficulties because we're gonna adopt the questions together. And if you stick to the questions that you approve, hopefully tonight, then there won't be any issues because we'll be sure and craft them in such a way that you don't. But this is really good information to make sure that I don't want to see anything bad happen. Then there are 3 board policies in the packet for you to review. The first is equal employment opportunity, and the important part is in the general statement. You know, we as a district, and I'm sure you've adopted this, everybody I think has, we don't discriminate, and you list all the things you don't discriminate on. The second policy is public and private personnel data. This is important. I have seen issues where you're going to get hit up as board members about when names come up, particularly. People are going to ask you about particular candidates, about their background and things like that. And there are things you can and cannot talk about. And this carefully lists it out. The first section, which is actually the second page, item number 4, public personnel data. This is following information on employees, volunteers, and independent contractors. These are the things that are public. Then if you go back, the page would be page 12 overall of the document. Under the top, letter C, it says the names of the applicants are private, except when certified as eligible for appointment to a vacancy or when they become finalists for employment. So all of the applicants' files that you're going to get a chance to read are private. Absolutely cannot share the data. Doesn't matter with whom. Don't share it. Once you get to that meeting on the 16th, and we begin talking about the candidates, we will talk about them in code for each candidate. So if I was an applicant, my code letter could be, I don't know, pick one, G. We'll talk about candidate G, but we won't talk about any of the details that might give me away. So you might say candidate G is a superintendent, but you would never say where they're from. You might say that candidate G has a doctorate and lots of experience in the thing we're looking for, but you would never say where they got their doctorate from or where they had their experience from. You will know all that information, and you'll have a list of who is candidate G and who's candidate W and whatever, but the public won't. And it hamstrings the board a little bit in talking about candidates. And I always use the guideline my mama used to say, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. And I think that from a board perspective, that's probably a pretty good thing. So then on page 13, it goes through the private personnel data, and it goes on for a little while. Please take a look at that. It's just really good information, and it'll protect you. You don't want to have a situation where somebody isn't hired, and because of the environment we're in, we're live streaming and or we're recording, candidates could be watching this. They could be watching the first round of the interviews when you do the, et cetera, or they could watch the selection of candidates. It is, everything we do is in the open. So we want to be real careful about how we go about doing that. The third policy then is the open and closed meeting law, and I think you know about that. I'm sure that that's an old hat to some of you, but take a good look through it to make sure that you really feel comfortable with that. I would say, in general, assume everything you're going to do is in the open. Assume that because we're in an electronic environment, that everything will be there in perpetuity, and we need to be careful about how we talk about candidates. One of the things that we'll do as we begin to, we'll talk a lot about this right before we start. We want to be careful how we say, let's say you have 6 candidates, and you want to narrow it down to 3 for a second round of interviews. You want to be careful about how you go about doing that and what you say or don't say. So the next page is common interview mistakes. There's the really good information on here. I would just say this. You can read it, you can see it all. This is a two-way street. If I'm a candidate, I'm coming to you to sell myself to you. I hope that you're selling yourself to me too. One thing that I would recommend if you're going to do interviews, be sure to have everybody's face up so that we can see each other. That's really important, I think, because they're going to want to see who you are, and you're going to want to see them. And I know it's difficult in today's environment, particularly if you have more than one person in a room and all that kind of thing. But hopefully we can figure out a way around that and make sure that everybody can see each other. Now the next, I think, 4 or 5 pages, maybe more, 6 pages, 178 sample questions in here that we will refer to in a little bit. A number of the questions from the sample questions for the first round that I sent you as a separate document came out of here. And we'll talk more about that, but there's a lot to choose from. Now, at the end of the interview, I would recommend that 2 of the questions you keep. The first one breaks the ice. Tell us a little bit about why you want to be a Montevideo school superintendent. It just kind of gets things rolling, etc. And the last one is important because every candidate comes to expect this. What questions do you have for us? The candidates will ask you things. I've only seen once or twice when they haven't. Sometimes they only ask a couple of questions. Somebody came with a big list one time, and they had, 10, 12 questions on there, and they tried to get through them as quickly as they could, but they had to stick within their time allotment. But I think here are some sample questions you might get in response, that somebody might ask you. So it's just a chance for you to think about it. And Andrew, as that happens, you might want to direct traffic in terms of, I might ask you a question that is about your board financial policy, and I don't know who's the best suited on your board, you do. And you might want to say, that's a good question. I'd like to have so-and-so answer if that's all right. And then anybody can speak up. I think you want to have it as a conversation. You don't want to have it so canned that it doesn't seem natural. You want to allow that opportunity to interact and to get to know the other person. And this is the one time when it's truly kind of an open conversation during the first round particularly. So take a look at what may be asked of you. Now, who's going to do the reference checking in between first round, second round? Was that Kelly? Am I putting you in a better spot, Kelly?
I don't think we established that. I mean, we
Okay.
need to, but.
Yeah, here's the deal. Let's say that you get 6 candidates first round and you narrow it down to 3. And between that weekend, that Friday noon and Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock, somebody should double check from the board, 1 or 2 references from each candidate. You have all the information from the candidates, you'll have that access to that information. So let's say I'm the applicant and I list the following people, their phone numbers or whatever, and you could just give them a call. Joe.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe you might have covered this earlier, and if you did, I apologize. In the early stages, do you guys do the criminal background checks, any type of stuff that's in the personnel files to eliminate or possibly move them forward, or where does that come into play for us?
That would be you. You have the legal right to do the criminal background checks. We do the professional vetting. Honestly, we can turn up almost everything that's public in our background vetting. However, somebody could have some kind of thing in their criminal background that was not part of their profession. And so we wouldn't find that. But that would be a district deal. And it's typically done after a contract is put together. So let's say you get to the end, I'm the person, Andrew and I come to agreement on what the contract is, pending a successful criminal background check and approval by the board. So that's always part of the offer, and then you either do the BCA check or the much more in-depth ones. I don't know which districts are using now.
So that'd be part of as a pre-qual. We wouldn't do that for everybody up front to try to eliminate.
Right, just the last person. Yeah, and by putting it that if the offer of employment is contingent upon successful background check and approval of contract by the board, you're not under obligation. So let's say that I'm the guy. We've come to an agreement, Andrew and I, and you decide to do the background check and you pop up, something in my background. And you go, whoa, wait a minute. So when you get together, you go, this isn't what we thought it was an offer to you. You have every right to do that. I can say that I've only seen once where that has come up, and it was somebody, and you may remember in the news, where they were selected for interview in Moorhead a few years ago, and the day of the interviews that stood for indecent exposure. It was in the news, and you may remember. So that happened beforehand. Nobody saw that coming. There's no way anything would turn it up because there was no record, that kind of deal. But I'd recommend that you do it right at the end. That's where it's typically done. And then put the contract offer pending. Does that help, Joe?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I have a question for my board then. Does anyone have a burning interest in doing that background checking? If you don't, I'm just gonna pick somebody. So.
good to be the chair.
Yeah? Are you up for that, Kelly? Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay. And Kelly, I can talk to you about that, and we have questions already for you and a form for you to use and everything. And the way that'll play out is, let's say we've gotten to noon on Friday, and you've got your 3 people that you're going to interview. And so you make the calls. I can even go walk through it with you and tell you which ones to call if you like, and the questions to use. Then we get to the second round. You go through the second round interviews, and then you go to begin to talk about the candidates. You finish the second round interviews. Before you begin talking about them, you would present, here's what I found. Here's what was said. And I'll walk you through that whole thing and be with you on that. But it's an opportunity for the board to do its due diligence as well. But don't feel like you're being left alone there.
Yeah, and Kelly, if you need help or if something comes up that you can't do it for some reason, I'll be your backup or second person.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks very much. So here's some sample questions, but I've already got some put together for you that I can share with time. So I mentioned this briefly, but when you talk about candidates in public, it's awkward. Comments made in public get legs. And a good example is a candidate from a neighboring state went across their state lines to interview for a superintendent, crossed their state lines to another state to interview for a job. As part of the interview process, they were asked the questions, why would you want to leave such and such a place? And the candidate responded, well, it's the armpit of the central part of the state. By the time they had gotten on a plane and gone back to where they were living, the board members were waiting for them at the end of the jetway. So I think we want to be real careful about what we say, because there are no secrets. And, you know, just like this being live streamed, the discussion will be live streamed. And you could bet $1 to a donut that candidates are going to be watching it. So you're going to be talking about them and they're going to be watching you. So that's where my mom's advice comes in good. You know, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That makes it a little awkward. It makes it difficult, I think, because the way the discussion typically goes is Andrew would lead the discussion and say, okay, we've had a chance, we've seen the feedback, we will have put all of our information together and sent it back to you. You'll have that in front of you. Kelly will have shared the reference information that she heard, and then you'll begin the discussion, and Andrew will say something like, is there anybody that we're leaning toward, you know, being real serious about? And we're looking for consensus. Don't vote. Don't list them 1, 2, and 3, because that becomes like a board action, and you have to be real careful about that. But is there anybody that we're leaning toward? And see if there's a response. Or in the contrary, is there anybody that we are leaning toward not considering? I'm not considering so and so. You know, that would be the negative side. I would recommend you lean towards the positive, where you say, is anybody we're leaning toward? Yeah, I'm leaning towards so and so. I really like their responses on these. Everything we heard about them was positive. The personality seems to fit what we're looking for beautifully. They match the qualifications profile that we listed in our vacancy brochure. I just think they would be well thought of. The feedback that we get from various groups has been positive. I like that person. Somebody else might say, well, I like this other person because of these really positive things. You know, don't talk about the fact that their suit doesn't fit, or, you know, that you don't like the fact that they don't have a ton of experience or whatever. Talk about positive things. Not saying anything is saying something. So a guide, I will be there with you, and I'll try to figure out how I can let you know if we go off the rails. It doesn't happen, but I just want to be sure that everybody's good to go. Then at the end, there's a sample superintendent's contract. You have a contract already in place with the superintendent, I'm sure, but it's there for you for reference. So any questions about any of the stuff that we've talked to about thus far? Everybody good? Okay, sorry, it's a difficult environment for me. I can't.
No, we're good.
I work best in person, and this is new for me too. So pull out that draft copy of the first round questions and let me walk you through what I did here so it makes some sense to you. What I took was the qualifications that you listed on your vacancy brochure as what it is you're looking for, and they're listed in there in bold. So the first section is a people person with proven abilities in human relations and communications. And the next one is visible, accessible. Those are exactly from the brochure. Then rather than talking about the details of each question, because we are live, I'm going to talk about the numbers for you, because those will change as we mix and add questions, etc., or drag questions in. And if you have the sample interview questions from the big packet as well to look at, we'll use the numbers on there and talk about those numbers. If we need to, we'll craft verbally a question. 2 nights ago, I wrote 2 questions for a board based upon what they were looking for. So don't feel that you're absolutely committed to any of this verbiage. We can write whatever you like. Typically, 18 questions is about all you can handle in an hour on a normal give and take relationship, and still allow time for the candidate to ask questions. So I've given you 27 possibilities, and some of them may resonate with you, some may not. Some of the numbers, some of the interview questions from the big packet might seem to be a whole lot better. So Andrew, I'd like to kind of hand this over to you for a little bit and have you talk with the board about, give everybody a chance to look through these if they haven't already, and then see what people would like to see in there, if they want to toss out some, and then we can look at the big packet to see if there's some we can pull in. And if we can get somewhere from 16 to 18 questions, including the opening and closing, we'll probably be in the ballpark for the first round. The second consideration is some of these, the first round of interviews typically sort them out. Figure out of the 6 people, who the 3 are that you really think most suit your environment or your qualifications. The second round of questions are to drill down, particularly in the skill sets and knowledge and ability. So think about that in terms of question selection. So Andrew, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yep.
So what I'm gonna walk everyone through is I'll mention the broad heading, the bolded letters, and then we'll stick to numbers besides that. Okay, everyone on the board? So on the opening question, do you like the number 1 on the draft, or would you like to substitute that with a different question?
I think it's good as is, just a good warmer, kind of a greeting, kind of a get to know them a little bit. They can offer what they want to.
I'm good with Andrew.
Becky?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
All right. We'll call that one. Travis, I guess I'm looking for anybody else too. Anybody else want to comment?
No, I'm good. I'll pipe in if I need to disagree, but otherwise,
I figured you
I
would.
concur.
I think it's a good opening.
You're good, all right. On this next section about people person, just I'll give you a minute to give them a quick skim, and then we'll go through and lock them in or lock them out.
I like 5 and 6 of those. I think they kind of in themselves answer 2, you know.
Yeah, you know, the comment I have about all of these questions are when I ask questions that are I want to hear a specific example of what they did. I don't want to just hear how they think they can do it. I want them to tell me a time when they did it. So that's how I would modify any of these questions. I'm not going to keep doing it over and over, but that's what I would add. You know, I like 5 and 6, but I would make them behavior-based questions. Tell me about a time when you did those things.
That's easily done.
Yeah, it's just changing a couple words.
That's kind of why I like number 3, really, that is doing what you're looking for.
Yeah, that one is a behavior-based question. Anybody else have?
6 is a behavior-based question too.
Say that again, Lee?
6 is basically asking for examples. How have you succeeded in maintaining? Yeah.
Was Travis, Becky, Joe, what do you guys think?
No, I think with the idea of trying to minimize those questions down from, what do you say, the 27 we have down to 17, 18, if we could roll, you know, like say like roll 3 and 5 together into a question and 6, when we get 2 of those behavior-based questions or something like that.
So if we take question 3, 5, and 6, and whether we consolidate them a bit or use them as is, are you okay with those 3 approaches in this section?
Yes.
Andrew, what we can do, if you're okay with this, if the board's okay with this, and if you're all right, I will write a draft yet tonight. I mean, I'll do it as soon as we're done with the meeting, and I can send it to you. And if the board allows us to, maybe you and I can do the final wordsmithing, and then I can have it put together and sent out to everybody within a day or less, maybe even tonight.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. You fine with that, everybody?
I'm okay.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it'll give us a chance to do the detailed wordsmithing.
Yeah.
If everybody's okay that we do that. And then we still will have time, if there's anybody that has any real objections, we can make modifications, no problem.
Okay. Sounds good. The next section, in the visible and accessible section, got those 3 questions. Same approach here. What do you like?
I like 7 myself. I don't know that 8 is applicable all that much.
Okay.
Well, at each community, you know, I don't, a little bit more than like we had.
Yeah. Anybody attached to 8?
We kind of asked those questions previously too, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like 7 is,
Visibility.
yeah, I feel like 7 is kind of like 5. It seems like they're kind of just worded different.
Mm-hmm.
Visibility of the school district where you work now. Oh, shoot.
Kelly, we can hear you.
Sorry.
She gets the award for thinking out loud.
I do like the first part of number 9.
Yep.
I think with the.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe.
With the turnovers that we're having at that level and stuff like that, I think that could be key.
You could almost modify it to say, how would you be involved in?
Right.
Let's go with 9 then.
So 9 seems like a consensus.
We don't need to find that section.
Well, we can always look at the other 400 questions Lee gave us too, so. If we want more, no, that's the other option, that's the bank we can go back to.
Yeah, I mean, that last part of number 9, I think we kind of are gonna hit that possibly in 7 and also the section above, you know.
Yeah, but I don't think it doesn't, I mean, for me, I would include 7 only because looking for a little continuity in their answers is important.
Right.
By the way, these won't be, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead, Lee.
These won't be written in the order that you
Yeah,
submitted.
exactly.
We'll mix them up.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, you know, we spread it out, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, 7 is a great duplicate to some of the other threads we're looking for in information. And so, yeah, you wouldn't ask it right after you ask question 5 in the above section, but asking it 15 minutes later would give you the idea, do they actually have continuity in their thoughts? So that's my recommendation. If you like it or not, I'm okay with it either way.
I like that, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so we got 2 there, so we're at 6 right now, 10 to go roughly. Next section about acting. Number 11 sounds like a fun one.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect one to ask something there. And how do you deal with that unpopular decision?
Yeah, could you combine 11 and 12 a little bit?
I think I'd ask them separately, and you know, considering this was our number 1, I think it came up as the top.
Everybody wants open and honest, right?
And it came up as the top specialized skill.
It
And
is.
our personal characteristics, it was the top, so I think it's okay to ask all 3 of those there if we've got room.
That's what I was saying, if we didn't have room, given, you know, going forward, somehow maybe try to incorporate 11 together, or all 3, I'm good with all 3.
So if we can do all 3, we'll do all 3. If we have to drop one, do we drop 10 or 12?
I think they're gonna tell us that already in the first
Yeah, I think.
number 1 question, they're gonna have already told us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think properly
Drop it
questions are gonna get us number 10 anyway. Okay, so I'll make it like we're locking in 11 and 12 there, and then we'll just sort it out later. Next section promotes.
I feel like you can combine 13 and 14, or 13 and 14. 13 asks what 14 goes like.
Okay,
Well-
that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're similar concepts, but they're different, right? Because partnerships are different than involvement. Like involvement, that's just filling out the survey, coming to the meetings. Partnerships, they're teaching a class in our school, right? So maybe there's 2 different threads there, but.
What I was looking for when I chose those, just some background, number 13 was really about the issue of connection with businesses, not only from an instructional standpoint, but it could be for support for referendums, it could be all kinds of things. And 14 was more of, you know, in the building kind of deal.
Yeah, once in our schools, I see the difference there.
Travis, Becky, what do you guys think about 13, 14, 15? Keep in mind, we're gonna have 2 rounds of interviews too, right? What do you wanna sort out in this first round?
I think we lost Becky.
Yeah, she had phone issues, she's using her phone for internet, so.
Can we combine 14 and 15?
I really like 13, I think, and then 14 and 15, yeah, if you combine them, or, for me personally, I think 13 would be my number 1 priority, but that's just me. Especially with that, you know, that partnership is key.
Yeah,
I
so
think,
again, make it behavioral based and see, you know, can you give us an example or of how you've gotten the business community involved in partnership with the school? And then if we can combine 14 and 15, how do you feel the community should be involved in the school district plan?
Travis.
Yep.
Can't.
you're thinking out loud again.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
supposed
can
to
you
be
hear me?
talking. Yeah, but we're not gonna be talking about the questions out loud.
It's okay, I drifted there myself.
You just gotta refer more to them as numbers, Travis, or maybe just a key word in there.
Okay,
But we
okay.
can't-
Thanks.
We're not really supposed to discuss the full
Gotcha.
questions as the candidates might be listed.
But I'd lock in 13. I like 15 for a round 2 interview question. If you got somebody you really are interested in, that's a question you could really press them with.
And we could beef it up.
You could beef it up in that second round too, right? But you could press somebody with that question rather than using it as a sorting question, because it might be just too broad for someone to dig into in a first round. I've got Becky, welcome back. We've got number 13 that we've locked in, and I was just making a recommendation that 15 beefed up a bit could be a good second round question to really press the candidate on, rather than maybe almost using it early in the first round. So what do you think?
So you want to keep 13 and then do 15 second round?
Yeah, we'll lock in 13 and then we'll just let the other ones go for now.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. I think we're at 9 questions in. In the experience section, what do y'all like?
I mean, to me, 17 and 18 are kind of what we're going through, shooting for currently. Will they both be round 1 or split them up, but
I like 19 too, though.
what'd you say, Kelly, I'm sorry?
And I do like 19 also.
Yeah, but what happens if they were at a district where they didn't experience that?
Yeah, true.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate, and if they did, it's great to hear what they did, but maybe they came from a district or never had that, I don't know.
So in our district today, we have a pretty robust budget planning process. Question 16 would give us the opportunity to understand how similar or dissimilar this other person's process may be. And at least in that case, we have a pretty good standard. We have a gold standard in what we do today, I think. Unless somebody vehemently disagrees, but this would be a way for us to understand what's their process for this. But so what I'm getting at is I like 16, 17, 18.
I think we've got room for all of them.
Yeah, because we're at 12 now, right? 19 could be a round 2 question or something, you know, added to a round 2 question, because it doesn't hurt to add.
Or depending upon what you hear, you might want to rewrite or focus in on some of these topics.
Yeah.
So if like 18, that topic is what somebody kind of responds, but you really want to know more because that's a high priority issue for you, then we rewrite it and focus in on exactly what you want. But you have room for all three there, and because it was a high priority for you in your what you were looking for, that certainly is no problem.
Okay,
I like that.
so I've got 3 there. And then we're into anything else on that one?
So out of the 16 or 17, are we shooting for 16, and then does number 27 count as our 16? So we'd have,
Yeah,
okay,
right, Joe. I think if we hit 16, then you got 1 and 18 total. What my experience has been is that 18, and I've done as many as 20 in an hour, but it leaves almost no time for the candidate and you to talk. And frankly, there's some really good exchanges that happen at the end. You know, because so I might ask you a question, and all of a sudden you can start a conversation. It's just, I just want to make sure and protect that time for you so you get a chance to sort through the candidates, particularly in this first round.
So, okay, so we're at 13, including 27 right now. So really we can pick somewhere between 3 and 5 questions. And I have one that I circled on the giant draft section that I'll pick up at maybe when we're done if we've got a window. What do you guys think of 20 through 26? Tyler, what do you think?
I really like question 22.
Okay,
I like 22 as well. I was just thinking that when he had said that.
so again, tell us about a time when you had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like 23 because it's a question about how they would seek understanding from the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, I don't know if this would be our topic for round 1 interviews, but I agree. I was looking at the big pamphlet here, and we want to touch on anything from questions 172 to 175. Because they're gonna, as you've talked about, our gold standard with,
Yeah.
16 through 19, I think we have a pretty good gold standard with 172 to 175, and I just would like to see their thoughts on continuing that going forward. Maybe one question.
Yeah, it would give us an opportunity to understand how much work they've done understanding what we have here as well. What do you like, Joe? I like the thought process.
Well, I don't really, yeah, I mean, to me, where we're at right now, I mean, first thing that pops out is, either 172 or 173. I think 174 we've kind of already done. I mean, 175 is good. I mean,
175 is open-ended and it doesn't
Yeah.
speak to how they did it somewhere else.
Right.
With 174 points answers, that would relate more to things to come in the future,
Possibly, yeah.
just because that's an ever-changing topic.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea to add one of those, first round.
Yeah, cause I'd hate to get to round two, and then we start getting, if we get on that topic, and then we go rut-roll, right?
Right, I mean, I don't wanna, deer in the headlights when you ask this question about that topic. If that happens, we'll know.
So I like the last word in 175. I would, if we use 174, I'd like to put that in there rather than the district reference. Just because that's what we're trying to fix here, or what we're working on.
I agree.
So I'm indifferent to the questions, I just wanna make sure we focus on that last word in question 175.
Yes, however you wanna word it, maybe you and Lee can spin it a certain way.
Lee, let's add that let's add those two to our list and figure out which one we want best.
Okay, I think I got exactly what you're saying, take 174, but slip in the end of 175.
Yeah, that's really what we're doing. Yep.
Got it, I got it.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Lee.
Andrew, what was the one in the packet that you're?
So I was looking at 83.
Oh, yeah.
Because this shows up all over in the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And again, describe how you have, not how you would, but. Travis, Becky, what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that works just fine here.
One question for you, and I'm being a devil's advocate here. Let's say that a candidate that sits before you may not have been a superintendent, but it's somebody that you choose to interview. They may not have had this experience. You might want to think about the expectations of what their answer might be. Not saying it's good or bad, I'm passing no judgment, I'm just saying they might be in a different place than somebody who has experience.
True.
Yeah, I think if we get that, if that individual would say, well, I don't have that level of experience, I think we could let them explain something that would get us there.
Or they could say, I don't have that, but if I were to.
Yeah, as long as they can build some credit, they have to build a little more credibility if they don't have the experience, but.
Well, and that's part of the thing about hiring somebody that doesn't have experience versus somebody who does have the experience. They need to be pretty good for you to, choose them over somebody with a lot of experience.
Yep.
And I guess.
So we have three in that last section now, 22, 83, 174. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Make sure I'm getting these down.
Yeah,
22 also?
Lee said 22, I had marked 23, but we kind of, we're bouncing around, so that's okay, we can.
Well, tell me which one, if I got it wrong, no problem, just, 23?
I like 23, but I didn't really give anyone else a chance to respond to that.
We've got room for 22, 23, the combination of 174, 175, and 83. Don't we have room for all four of those?
I think it was 3 to 5.
Andrew, the only other, I just wanna throw before we decide, and I'm to be persuaded either way, not so much on our current survey, but given the history we have with the board, in our community, what are your thoughts on something around 106? Maybe that's more of a second round 2 question. But given what we're measured against and what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
Yeah, it's real good.
And
We do
that-
have room.
And that could be around two, you know, I don't know.
Well, but you do have room for at least one more that I can see. And if we combine, like 5, 6 together, you could actually have 2 in there, I think, yes. Unless my count isn't right.
No, I think you're right. I think this still keeps us under 18, adding 106.
Do you have counting 23 or not?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 22 and 23 I had written down, so
Okay.
I count again.
171.
Yeah, I get 18.
Okay,
So that would be-
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I'm not saying we have to have 106, but I'm just,
No, I think it's a good call, Joe.
I think it's a good question.
And see if I
Yeah.
recorded the numbers correctly, and then, if I have them, we can begin, I'll do the first run at this and then send it to Andrew, and then we'll try to fine tune this in less than 24 hours. I hope to have this back to you then
Okay,
completed, so, 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and by the way, all these with the word modifications we talked about.
Yep.
11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 22, 23, 83, 106, 174, 27.
that's what I have, Lee.
Okay,
good with that?
okay, that brings us to right at 18, so if you're good with that,
I think that's a good start. I think that's good for round 1.
okay, then I'll, as soon as we check out here, Andrew, I will, get this put together in a document and email to you. I don't know that I have your email, but I've got your, the other way we contacted. So if you wanna, send me your email, I can send it to you at the best address.
Oh, yeah, I'll just send you an email real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to do it online here, but, so then the second, or the last piece I want you to look at while we're all together is the first round draft interview schedule. And basically call the meeting, to order on, 5 minutes to 4, and the first interview would be at 4 o'clock, and approve the agenda. Then we would begin the interview process. We've got 3 scheduled, 4 o'clock, 5:15, 6:30. That the thought is 1 hour, and then it provides you with 15-minute buffer zone. That buffer zone allows you to submit the questions with the exceeds, meets, or does not meet expectations form. Then at the end of that, which would be approximately, I don't know, 8:45 maybe, Andrew, you continue the meeting to Friday morning. Then Friday morning, we call the board meeting back to continue the board meeting. You don't adjourn the meeting, you continue the meeting. And then the first interview is at 8:30, the second one is 9:45, and the third one is at 11. So then we would take a bit of a break, and what I would recommend is that we can arrange to have, if any of you are at the school building, you could have a snack, or we just stay on the line and go to the kitchen and make ourselves a salad or whatever it is that we do. And then we get back together again sometime. We'll establish a time in there. I just plugged in a period of time, because we have to take all of the comments, collate them, and then we need to talk a little bit about if you're going to have people watching and providing input, and that's where the time has to be built in. There are really 3 ways that boards interview candidates. One is that we've received a lot of input through the stakeholders, through the people, the work that we've done in terms of developing our own qualifications, et cetera. And so we'll do the interviews, and people will watch if they want to. The second method is that you conduct the interview and then select, or there's a hand select number of people that will watch all of the interviews and provide you input. And they provide input via an audience input form. And the audience input form basically has 2 questions for each candidate. What are the top 2 things that you really like, or strengths of this candidate? And the second question might be, what is the one area of improvement that you see for this candidate? That is all written out, and then that would be submitted by them electronically, and then we would have somebody else in our office take all those handwritten comments and bring them together so that you will then get a document back from each of the interviews of the people that you've selected to be participants. And that's done in a variety of ways, the selection of participants. It could be members of the administrative team, it could be representative stakeholders within your school district, it could be representative stakeholders within the community. The third method that's been done, and I've had this, but it takes a team of people even on site to do it, we've never done it electronically, is to allow groups to actually interview candidates. We don't recommend that. There are so many pitfalls for a board in that, because you can't control what is said during a process like that or what happens, and yet you become liable for the process. So if you're going to do stakeholder input of one kind, I would recommend you look at the second one. But that is a decision I think Andrew probably should make so that we can coordinate, because the more people that are involved, the more complicated this gets, and the more time it takes for us to put it all together.
Yeah, so Lee and I did discuss this briefly the other day, and I wanted to ask the board what level of input besides the board would you like? I have a recommendation, but I'll wait and hear what the board would like to try first.
I guess I'll go, and I think the more input we have, or the from the community, I mean, it's always a double-edged sword, but I think we want to be transparent, we want to be open with the community, so I think by allowing some of that feedback is good.
Okay. What else? And Joe, just while others are thinking, what do you mean by community? Do you mean our school team, or do you mean people from the banks and the farms and stuff? What do you mean?
My initial thought was at least from the buildings, whether the teachers and other, not even just teachers, just employees of the district.
Okay. Yeah, for me, we do have a fair amount of turnover. Not just looking for a superintendent. We've got some administrative turnover, and so I thought it would. I like the idea of having a set number of non-board members that would be in all the interviews that would do what Lee described. This is what I liked and this is what I didn't like, or something to that effect, right? But we can't have them asking questions and we can't have them interacting. That's not something we could risk trying to control. So.
Right.
But involving people in the process is important to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, I'm not opposed to having a few different people in the community. The problem that I'm concerned about is if we go and handpick 2 or 3 people, then we're going to get into the proposal. Why didn't I get picked? Oh, sure, you picked this person and this person because you know how they, I just think we open ourselves up to a little bit of backlash if we start handpicking 3 to 5 community members and don't.
Yeah, I don't know where to start and stop that. That's the community problem, right?
Yep, that's why I'm putting more acceptive to the building levels.
you know, like, you know, like one or two people from the district level, one or two people from the middle school, Sanford High School.
All I wanted to add was, let's make sure we have, representation from each of the buildings, or whatever that looks like.
The only problem I'd have is how to choose those folks. Lee, do you have any recommendations how to kind of unbiasedly select folks from different buildings? And, you know, the end game is to really have that, even that be diverse, right? You don't want to just pick the administrators from all the buildings, because then you don't include teachers, custodians, and other invested interests, right?
What I've seen work really well is that you decide how many you want to involve. The more people you involve, the more complicated this gets. And they sit in one interview, they got to sit in all of them.
Yep.
So you'll have to free them up to do that. But in order to take the burden off of what Joe was talking about, I would recommend that you decide what groups are going to be represented and let them make the decision.
Okay.
So if it's the you know, the administrative team, then you contact them and let them know. If it's the certified staff, then you tell them this is what we want you to supply, you know, for us. Or if it's non-certified, whatever those groups are, and then let them choose. But you know, the parameters need to be, you have to be available with these, and you have to do them all. You can't just do one or the other, otherwise it's not fair to include your responses. And then that way they choose who represents them, not you, and it takes you up the hook.
Andrew, do you know offhand how many, I don't know if this way we want to go about it, but like negotiation groups, how many union groups, negotiation groups do we have? And do we go about it that way, or does that get too messy?
Yeah, I mean, that's an option, but I think the way Lee categorized it was certified and non-certified staff, and I think that might be a little cleaner.
Sure.
Right, you could put, because in that concept, you'd be putting the clerical teams, the custodian teams, the paraprofessionals all into one non-certified group, right? And then you'd have a certified group, which is basically teachers, right? So maybe we have three groups. We have a non-certified, a certified, and we have an administrative group. So you have three, and you say we want two from each. You get 6 people.
Yep, I'm good with that. Yeah, I just couldn't remember how many.
I think six is probably manageable, because then it's going to be 12 inputs, right? Total, 6 board members, 6 outside or non-board members.
Now, the way that input works, just is they would fill out those forms electronically. Again, that we're new into this year, and like all school districts, we're figuring this out as we go. But we've got these forms, I think they're going to be electronic, and each of those individuals then bring their own laptop, log in, get the form up, you know, input their name, the candidate's name, their name, and their responses, and then hit submit. And then we'll have a body at the times that we're interviewing who will be collating all of that stuff and turn around and send it to you. So when you get to the end of the interviews, in the first round, that would be Friday morning or Friday noon, whenever that is, you would be able to see the responses of all the candidates, because you won't talk about candidates after Thursday night. You'll wait until you go through all 6 of them and then talk about them. And so you'll get to see all of their comments, et cetera, and take a look at them. And that's a good way to do it. The other thing is, some districts only do that for the second round, because then there's only 3 candidates, not 6, and it makes a little bit more sense. You winnow it down, and they provide input on the finalists.
I like that idea. Or backwards, I don't know.
On a side note, if we had 12, and if all 12 wanted to be in person, we need to think about not tonight, or where are we going to hold these interviews as well, if we potential all 12 people in person, right? Plus the interviewee.
Yeah, almost all districts. I don't know of anybody who's done an in-person interview yet. The first round, they're all doing online. I don't know about anybody doing a second round interview. That's just happening like right now. So I don't know. One of the things that's difficult, and I'll just say this from my standpoint, I can't see most of you. I can't see if you're wearing a mask. I can't see your facial expression. And if I came in as a candidate and was wearing a mask, you couldn't see if I'm smiling or if I'm frowning or if I'm sticking my tongue out at you. And these are the circumstances we find ourselves in trying to find our way through. The best way to do that, what we've found so far, is if everybody's on their own laptop and without a mask, then, and if we're up close, you can see our facial expressions. It just makes a contact better. At some point in time, you got to get people, together if you're going to negotiate a contract with them or something. And I'll find out what's going on with the second round. In other districts, they'll be having theirs before yours, and we'll be able to kind of know. But we'll have to decide that by February 16th for sure, because anybody that gets selected, we'll have to tell them, the second round's going to be in person, or they'll both be online or whatever, so they know. If that makes sense.
Okay. So what does everyone think about have more people involved in the second round, or do we want to do it in this first round?
I think we should have more people involved in the second round.
I have mixed feelings about it. Part of me feels like the final decision is the board's decision. And are we muddying the waters if we take input at that time? I'm flip-flopping my opinion right now. I'm kind of vacillating between the two schools of thought.
The superintendent I think needs to be transparent with everybody. This is the stakeholders' money involved for this superintendent. So I feel like we need to let these people have a say as well. I understand it's the board's final decision, but I think we need to have it out there and have people involved as well.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we want them involved. We're just trying to figure out if it's in round 1 or round 2, because I don't think we're going to do it in both, right?
That's what I was gonna ask Lee, if they're in round 1, are they kind of expected or wanna be in round 2?
Well, here's what happened last year. I can only refer back to that. I only did one. I finished up Mora the last day that we could meet in person, March 16th last year. And we had 20-some people in the room. And I was physically gathering the stuff and collating them in the back of the room as the interviews were going on. I did St. James after that, and that was electronic. And they did not have any of the audience input forms there. So, this is relatively new ground for us. But we'll make it work, just don't worry, we'll figure it out and make it work if that's what you want.
Right, but if we had a group of input on round 1, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be in round 2, does it?
No, you can decide, if, when, how, whatever you like.
Okay.
What if, just again, why not make it more complicated? But in the first round, let that be more of the folks that are in the district, right? It's the teachers, the custodians, the clerical folks, the whatever individuals. And then if we decide that we want someone giving feedback in the second round, what if we narrow that to the administrative team? Or do you want them all, or do you want to have a mixed bag? That's the head here, right?
So are you saying have different people for the first one and then the administration for the second one?
That's the way I worded it, yeah.
I think that's a good way to do it.
I mean, it's, so the way it plays out in my head is you bring in broad thoughts from a very large team, right? Right, you're pulling people out of 250 employees, and we got their input to bring the group from 6 to 3. And then the folks, a couple of the folks, you're not gonna bring in all 6 or 8 administrators or whatever it is, but a couple of the key leaders on that team would give feedback on the next round, because they're gonna interact with this person hourly, right? The other folks are gonna interact with the person weekly and monthly. That's my thought process.
I agree with you, so I think at least in the secondary round, I'd like to have, now granted, given, we'll see, you know, at least the administrative team or part of the administrative team. Could even maybe somebody like a Michelle or Adam or somebody, right? I mean, figure that out later.
I would include those folks in the administrative version. The district office folks would be in the second round if I was gonna put them anywhere.
Right, I mean, they're gonna be with them hand in hand every day, we're not, some of the other representations won't be, so I think it'd be good to have them in.
What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, you know, we'll do it however you wanna do it. If the group gets too big, there's gonna be a real delay time between the end of your last interview and when we get all the data to you.
No,
That's why I put in over an hour or something in there, so I'd be careful about how many people you have as an audience. It's just,
I think
turnaround's gonna take time.
this might pare it down, right? Because we'll, rather than trying to have a representative set from 3 or 4 groups in the first round, we can try to get a representative set from 2 groups, basically. And then in the second round interview, we'll be getting a sample from even a smaller, tighter group. So it's really only 6 people and 4 people.
6 people or something, or?
6 and 4, 6 and 6, yeah, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, that's doable, we can do that.
Okay.
And then Andrew, as a board, and I don't, do we all wanna be in the same room? We were all gonna be asking questions, so we either gotta know what questions we're gonna be answering, so we're not talking on top of each other, or what's our thought process on that, so we look pretty professional and we won't.
Well, we gotta figure out technology then, because if we got 11 Chromebooks in this thing, it'll be an echo hell.
Right, well, the other individuals that are sitting there, they won't be asking questions, right? They're just gonna be.
No, but they gotta have their computer to do their questions.
Right.
But can they be doing their thing from their classroom
Yeah,
or some other setting?
The listeners don't need to be here in the room.
Right, it'll just be us 6.
I think us 6 should be in this room, and I think the listeners should be, nearby.
How are they gonna do something from their classroom if we got teachers have kids in their classroom?
Well, it's some classroom, they won't probably be able to be in their classroom, there'll be a sub in their classroom.
Yeah, I mean,
And maybe they're doing it from home, it won't make any difference.
Yeah, they can do it from home, they can do it from an office and off in the district office, but yeah, the point is just not in this room.
Well, if everybody mutes while they're not talking, it'll work. And to Joe's first question, I think if you decide, once we get these written out, Andrew, you could just say, I'll take the first question, Kelly takes the second question, Joe takes the third question, et cetera. And then you mark in advance, then everybody does ask the same question each round.
Yeah.
And then you unmute, ask your question and mute up, and then I think that would work.
Yeah, we can just put it on the template that way.
Yeah,
Joe, Kelly, Andrew, Travis, Becky, right through.
Yeah, if everybody's work schedule and personal schedule can work, I think it's best that we're all in the room together. But if somebody's got something they gotta be at home or have to do from work, I understand.
Is the room big enough for you to socially distance and stuff?
Yes.
It is, but what about back to what we brought up? Are we gonna have to have masks on so no one gets to read facial expressions?
Oh, yeah.
That's a big part of an interview.
That is, yep, good call.
Well, this room is big enough that we can be 6 feet apart.
Yep,
Without masks.
and mask, you guys just gotta be comfortable with it.
Well, I mean, again, if I'm following the rules and I'm following the guidelines, I can sit in that corner, somebody can sit in that corner, we can put somebody in the middle, right? I mean, there's 12 feet between everybody here, so we don't have to use this triangle setup we got going here.
Correct.
All they're gonna see is your individual screen, so it won't make any difference where you're sitting, really. And you could use multiple rooms if you wanted to.
Isn't that still part of the executive order?
What's that, Kelly?
Isn't it still part of the executive order that if we're in a public place, regardless of how far apart we are, we have to have masks on? I mean, I'm not saying it because I believe it, I'm just repeating what I think the executive order is.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I thought it was, I don't know, I don't wanna speak to that, cause I thought it was 6 feet apart, but I don't know.
I think Kelly's got something there. I'm not, tightly familiar with it, but everything we're doing, we're running into, people with masks on in the building.
Well, maybe that's
I
something.
think the only time the staff here can take, like, the only time they can take their masks off is they're in their own office, their own separate partitioned off office, not a cubicle, but like in an office that's separate. So I'm afraid that that's not gonna be an option here unless we can all be in a different office in the room. And that's gonna bring up, does everybody's home Wi-Fi strong enough so that we're not cutting out?
Is that something that we could, that you could have checked out, maybe Bob or whomever, from your side can, go through and make sure everybody's good to go? And, if not, maybe we can find a separate office space or something, for somebody to be in so you can meet that, personal thing and still have connectivity?
Yeah, we could look at that. Here's this, a plan B, Kelly, I don't know, you're probably more in tune than I am. What, could the district provide us clear face shields?
Point, probably, yes.
I think the district, I think we have clear face shields, yeah, it looks a little corny, it looks a little clunky. But if we don't have to be together, we really don't, it's just if we can be 6 feet apart, we can still see facial expression, but maybe we have facial clear shields.
I'll take an action check on both things, getting face shields and then, what are our backup options?
Yeah.
3 of us in this room, 3 of us in another room, whatever.
Yep, I'm cool.
I'll check that out.
And maybe I'm wrong, maybe if we are far enough apart,
Well,
but
The new administration just did something with that all too, so whatever.
So if we're all gonna be on our own separate computer screens, I'm playing devil advocate. I'm not gonna be happy wearing a face mask for 4 hours. I know other people do it. I don't. What's the benefit of us having to be in the same room if we're all gonna be seen on a different screen? We're all gonna have to be muted in between questions, so we're still gonna have to mute and unmute ourselves to ask our specific questions we're gonna ask. Just wondering what the benefit is to us all being together.
feels like we're doing something.
Feels like we're building a team.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't know if we.
No, I get where you guys are coming from. I like Lisa, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just curious of what that shows. We're not gonna be seen as a group together anyways. We're all gonna be seen on our individual 6x6 or 9x9 screen or whatever it is. 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch on my phone.
There's maybe a benefit if somebody has a technical problem to be able to get some help, but.
But Kelly, all of us but Tyler have kids at home on district or hybrid learning. We all have excellent technology, so that there's no issues.
I do not have excellent technical. I lost you twice tonight, so.
So Becky's coming in.
So Becky,
Yep, I'm coming in.
all right.
So Becky, maybe we'll put you in Luther's office.
I mean, I'm fine. I'm not saying I won't come in. That's fine. I just curious of what it does.
All right,
I don't
so
think you're gonna-
everything you're gonna check into that.
I'll figure it out and let you guys know.
Yep. You tell me and I'll be there.
All right.
I think that those are the key issues, that we've got for us tonight, I think.
Yep, everything on my list.
And, if you're all okay, then I'll crank out, questions yet tonight and get to Andrew, and then between us, we'll have something ready to get back out to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Can I ask one more question?
You
Absolutely.
can ask as many as you like.
How do you decide which administrators to ask?
We're gonna let them decide.
What's that?
We're gonna let them decide.
Well, we've got 2 resigning. Do we need them or do we want the
No.
ones that are gonna make
No,
sure
we
that we're still
want, we
in?
want people that are gonna be future employees. That'll be the pool.
Right, so then we've cut it down a little bit more.
Yep.
So now we're down to 3.
Well, we would include,
Well,
there's like technology.
You include Scott and Vera
Scott,
and you include
Vera,
Melissa, and, I mean, they're all in the pool. The third people aren't gonna be able to do this, right?
Yep. So,
Yep.
okay.
I have a I'm thinking about who the captain of the team might be that I'll ask to organize it, but still thinking on that. All right, anything, Becky, any other questions?
Nope.
Anybody else, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe and Tyler moved and seconded. All right. Lee, thank you very much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My morning is rather busy tomorrow, but I'll do my best to get back to you right away.
Whenever you